Hey. Hey, Doug. Hey, Aaron. You're both on mute, by the way.
Hello.
Hey, hey.
I'm sorry I missed Sunday, but I just finished watching Sunday. So I'm doing a double header of GCC today.
Well, that's cool. You probably got a dose of Miss Tammy.
Um, it was actually, you know, I thought it was terrific. And I wish I was there because I would have loved to, um, you know, stir some ingredient in, contribute. Um, but that'll happen anyway. So everything in its time and for its reason. But yeah, all of the really sort of essential core stuff um, of what's important in terms of me as a human being and me as part of a community or collective of other human beings. And, like what's important in that is our being part, not all the other stuff. And Sunday was like all about the being part.
Yep. Yep.
So, yeah.
So, hey, Aaron. Hey, Glenn. It's awesome that you listened to the whole thing, by the way, Doug.
Like, isn't that what this is all about? Now, I will confess, it helps that YouTube enables you to do it at a faster than regular speed, which actually makes it manageable to get it, you know, um, in a way that makes it, doable and still have a life and function and do other things. But yeah, so I will confess to having sped it up a little bit, but I got it all.
Yeah. My understanding is also that Tammy does plan to join us this morning. So, was that your check-in, Doug, or would you like to do a check-in?
Well, I'd love to do a check-in. I'm sort of curious, Glenn, how whether you had a chance to look at the manifesto that I added as a comment to your post, one of your posts. And because it was on the values meme, Glenn had sort of posted about values and, sort of the potential and power of them. And I had thrown a piece of the puzzle that Fabian and I had cooked that was actually the sea crystal for everything we've collaborated on since. And I was curious whether Glenn, had any reaction to that. And I'm just really glad. I'm glad to be here. I felt the missing of Sunday, the synchronous missing of Sunday. So
tell me all about it today. So yeah, sorry I haven't had time to look at it yet, but yeah, really looking forward to hearing about it. Yeah.
No push or rush. I'm very curious on what your feeling is about it. I'd love your feedback.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, but I haven't had time to read it. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. No pressure. All good.
Was there anything special which you thought was interesting? Which first thing to think about the values meme?
Well, I mean, your whole post for me, hello. I always find your posts resonant for me because they always seem to come from the human being centered place rather than a head place or an intellectual place or an academic place or it always seems to come from core. And so you're really when you share what you share, it's always really resonant. And I think you really sort of, hit the nail on the head in that post in terms of the significance, meaning, potential, opportunity, that sort of values offer before you get to the add-ons.
Yeah. All the values of us and what we each value and how there's some things we all value. And those things we all value, they tie us together. And this is, this group of people here, we have values that we all value. I'm really fascinated by that. By the way, also I want to say that I listened to the previous group conversation, and unfortunately I couldn't make it that day, but I would just say I really enjoyed listening to it, and thank you very much, and thank you, Tammy, especially. I was felt really good to see that the open sharing that we're seeing with all of us. And yeah, so thanks for that.
My pleasure. I'll cry anytime. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it felt really good. I watched that last night myself, and yeah, it felt really powerful to just be real in that place and express. And I think that we are all up against the wall. That's part of the reality. So here we are. I also, like many people, want to push forward and get stuff done. Aaron, do you want to just mute yourself while you're shuffling around there? Sorry,
Oh, can you
the
hear me?
sound is coming
Sorry.
across. Yeah, no
Thanks for
worries.
telling me. Please, anytime, tell me if I. Thanks.
Yeah. So, and I certainly feel it, and I know we all do. Like, that's part of what brings us here is we're like, okay, well, stuff's going sideways. What can we do? And we can do a lot. And I haven't read Glenn's post. And I look forward to it. Glenn, I just really appreciate, I appreciate everyone, of course, but I really appreciate you particularly for being able to pull the pearls of wisdom and to create ways for people to kind of read synopses of what it is that we're learning. And there's so many gems that you're able to, that I've seen you pull out and make available in text. And you know, part of I was having a conversation with Sam last night where we were talking about the difficulty of really pinpointing the gems in video because it's a little more ethereal. So having that bridge to be able to really express what's been shared and some of the insights is really powerful for us. So I just wanted to really appreciate you for taking that piece of work on and leading there and just using your creating value.
Yeah, it's like we're all creating value together. Like this moment when we're together, what we discover here, is a record for the past and the future. So we can discover great things, and when we discover great things, we can build on them and learn, and we can do this together. And that's I feel that's the conversation we're beginning to have, and it's yeah, it's such a process which is so many interesting new possibilities, and it's also weird. It's like yeah, it's very strange. It's a strange time in a way. That's just my feeling, and also this like there's some feeling inside of like, yeah, we could really do it well, you know, but then how can I express that, and like how could that come into life? And that's like, wish that could come into life, but it's like somewhere inside you feel, whoa, humanity could really make it if we could really get together, and you have, you know, that dream is always there, and yeah, that keeps coming back. And I feel that when we're together and we're sharing and we're figuring things out, discovering things, we're keeping that dream alive of that, you know, the greatness. Because I think we all bring a greatness to this process, each one of us. Because we all have these unique experiences and we're bringing them into the pool. So I think it's really creative process.
Has everyone had a chance to check in?
No. We haven't. I guess I'll check in. Yeah, I'm doing well. Maybe, should I check in with ideas? Should I just check in with how I am, or can I check in with, I'll check in with ideas. Yeah, because I just gave Glenn's thing a quick read. I think that's really like what you wrote, Glenn. Non-zero sum games. I'm definitely on that bandwagon there. And it's also, right, non-zero sum games are extremely well defined, right? Mathematically defined, in fact. So, you know, it appeals to the left brainers out there and the people that want really concrete mind thinking too. So, and I actually think that it also translates well to thinking in terms of heart, as Doug was saying. So, just a quick thought. I love that is if we called ourselves the GCC non-zero games. I'd be cool with that. Just a quick thought though. So, just my little view over here of, limited view, as we all have limited view. Anyway, so that's great. I was also thinking, Sam, so is this a purely human movement here? Because maybe one of your dogs could be one of the first non-human members. I don't that also crossed my mind. And another thought. I remember Cornell West. I'm not sure if you know Cornell West, professor at Princeton. He was somewhat involved with the Occupy movement, and I remember he made a point that I did really like. And Occupy movement, successful or not, that's we could go down a tangent around that. But I did like that Cornell West said that, don't try to pigeonhole us. If you try to pigeonhole us around just one particular issue, you're going to guarantee our failure in any kind of movement. So I actually think that taking Cornell West is a great, great thinker, so validating that it's okay to not have to be terribly pigeonholed around what you're doing. So non-zero sum games, I don't think, Occupy is even broader than that. But anyway, those were just some thoughts I had, just kind of trying to grok everything. And those are some thoughts. Yeah. Nice to see you all too.
I'll check in with a quick recap and two small points. One is that I am deep in the throes of preparing for a talk I'm giving in Chicago on Tuesday. So that's why I'm not able to stay more than an hour today, but I wanted to at least join and not miss you all. So I do enjoy being here. One of the points on values that I like thinking about is, values are so good. That's why we have so many of them. And my point there is we can't really scale to include all of the people on this planet if we're going to narrow down to a small set of values that seem to be the ultimate. I think we need to be able to coexist with people who hold different values than we do. And I think that is really the trick. And when it comes to games, not even is it just a non-zero sum game, it is an infinite game. Some of you may be familiar with that particular term. The point is not to win, the point is to go forever. And I think that's the game we're in. So I'd like to, put those two thoughts in here as my opening statements. There's also a separate list I've had for probably about 3 or 4 weeks now about topics that we could use to, in a sense, push this community forward in Tammy's sense of the word. But I'll be very relaxed about inserting them if we have a lull in the conversation, which I don't think we've ever had. Over and out for now.
Okay, I'll check in. As usual, on a Thursday, I have my grandchildren in the other room being really preoccupied with their electronics. It's really cold here, -2. And I've been reading a lot there was a really interesting meeting that happened in Madrid. Michelle Bowens was there, and I put up, I think, his talk. And there were some other talks that were really interesting. All to do particularly with a cooperative, collective called MAST, I think, M-A-S-T. So yeah, I've also been wondering about where we go from here, or if we go from here. Is this going to develop into something else, or is this it? I mean, if this is it, it's fine, because I love these conversations and I get a lot from connecting with people. So I don't have an answer to that. I'm just putting the question, throwing it in there. That's me.
So I'd like to share a sort of experiential thing for me about this time and the conversations we're having here and the experience we're having here. There was on Sunday, you know, Sam, you sort of went on a roll about the current order, the current cultural paradigm, the industrial, the financial. You know, it's really not programmed or set up for human beings. That's not what it was designed for. That's not what it's in service to. It's in service to money and wealth and power and scarcity and competition, and it's in service to a whole bunch of other drivers, none of which are particularly human being centered, oriented, or meaningful. And I've been living the last 3 years in a place of getting back to human being centered. And in terms of my generative potential, which is the bounds and limits of what I can contribute to the effort of changing what we're confronted with, to sort of focus up on that meme and then take a fresh look around at just about everything that we're, you know, how we're programmed in the industrial frame and what might we replace it with. Like, what would a new look like if we were to strip it all down and start clean? Placing human being centered sort of at the top of the heap, and then common centered, which is each in service to all, and the third thing that we landed on was values centered, because values, at least on a collective basis, define and determine my individual inaction and the aggregate collective action of the group of people that I've come to agreement with on, you know, the values that are going to determine and define what we do or create or generate. On just like the most simple, basic, you know, starting square one basis. So for me, this experience is in the frame I experience it from. We're cooking. Like, this is what it looks like, and the emergences from this is what's going to map to the change. You know, what's going to map to the transformation of the world we're in. and I don't have a preconception or a vision of that. I don't have I also at this point don't have a need or requirement that I know that up front, or that, you know, I'd be working towards something. It's all about like stirring the soup, being in the soup, and all of us stirring it to see what we can emerge and surface. And for me, Glenn's post about values, which was generative as a synthesis and as a sort of escalation of expression of a collective thing, was a catalyst for me to sort of throw out the Values Manifesto, which is actually the first time I've done that. It was originated 3 years ago, evolved over 24 months in successive versions to the one that I shared. It's like a coming out thing. But it was a coming out thing that was catalyzed by his energy and clarity and expression. And it was like, that's an emergent thing I think, respond to, augment, add to, contribute to. Right? And so that's what emergence is for me. In fact, like, that's a very real, concrete, tangible, mimetic thing. And to somebody from without looking in an industrial frame, or somebody with all that sort of cognitive programming and stuff about being productive and outputs and goals and accomplishments and all of the industrial humans doing rather than humans being stuff, it doesn't look like anything, because it's not on the radar. It's not in the cultural frame to even be recognized or acknowledged. It doesn't have any value attached to it, because it doesn't map to money. But from an energy and field standpoint, by and between and amongst human beings connecting on an energy and field basis, and an emotional basis, and a spiritual and cognitive basis, it's multifaceted and it's multidimensional. It means a lot. It's like really powerful. And it holds the potential to propagate waves and to affect well beyond the four corners of the Zoom screen. And, Sunday's conversation, I said to Sam, Tim, before you got here, I screened that before this, like I did a double header. And it was hugely powerful. And I wish I could have been there as a contributor, but I was like hugely appreciative of everything that was shared and contributed. And that's powerful, tangible, meaningful, by, between, and amongst human beings, sharing, exchanging, supporting, giving to each other, and contributing to the collective. And so that's my, that's me. It doesn't have to be anybody else's experience or orientation or takeaway or whatever, but that's me, that's mine, and I'll stick with it. And I'm complete. Sorry to go on that long.
I had one question. Maybe that could be interesting to think about concerning this. And I was about what you asked, Anna, of what will happen with us, what will happen with this group. And the question came to me here the other day, and it was, what will the future be like? And what will it be like if it's a good future? So what, let's say, the future of this group, the future of humanity, humanity-centered, what would the future be if it's a good future? That question came to me.
You're muted, Anna.
Thank you. One of the things that occurred to me, because I was reading about net neutrality and the possibility that it might disappear, and the possibility that actually we won't be able to connect with each other like this in a few years' time, or maybe even next year. That we may need to think more locally, somewhere where we can walk on our own 2 feet, even the possibility of doing without transport. So it could look very different from, and I think that's great what Doug was saying, that we don't actually have to have or need any vision of what it's going to look like, because actually it's impossible really to think about that. It's going to grow out of where we are now, but there could be very sudden cutoffs that we're not aware of now that could change things drastically. At the same time, I just think it's important, like was saying, that we take that with us each individually, that this is the care that we hope to be able to express in our local communities, if it comes to that, and as much as possible in the world, globally.
So I'm going to give us 2 little experiments, I guess, around this point of shared values and community. One is, imagine that the 6 of us are in a small little village with babies, teens, adults, elders, oracles, dogs, cats, pigs, whatever. And if you ask each of the 150, what's the community about? You'd probably get 150 or at least 300 different answers. Then secondly, take a look at New York City. It seems to persist, regardless what ups and downs, befall the city. It's going to stay. People are going to live there. They're going to eat. They're going to drink. They're going to commune. They're going to do all kinds of things. If you ask each of the 5 or 10 million people that live there, what's the city about? You're probably going to get 20 million answers. So to me, that doesn't indicate to me that it's necessary to have a single vision of what a community is about. A 5-year-old is going to have a different notion of what that community is for than a 20-year-old, than as a 30-year-old, than as a 50-year-old, etc. And as long as they can all coexist and mutually, respect each other and support each other and take care of each other, that to me is a community. Now, there are those random people that say, New York's not for me, and they head off for California. So people self-select. But if we now expand all of this to the planet, we don't have that option to get off. Actually, there's one way, but short of that, we don't have an option to get off. So I think those are the mental experiments I'd like to put in front of us to say, what is the role of values? What is the role of shared purpose? And is that a reasonable way to define community? Over.
Huh. I kind of want to have more fun. I feel like recycling these questions are like, eating yesterday's porridge or something. And I feel that, it is.
Theater.
Huh?
It's theater, isn't that what we're doing?
Yes.
Theater.
Yes.
They're fighting questions very seriously, and I agree. We should have fun.
And I think that there are really serious things to talk about, but I guess I think inside me I feel like the pathway, in part, is through humor and through speaking the truth. And I think humor is a good bridge. And not that it all has to not be serious, but it can't all be serious. And I guess I wonder if I like the seed planting around game playing. We can talk about games being models for real life. We can add some fun kind of exercises with what it is that we do. And I agree. I agree with so much of what I've heard in terms of us, that this is of value, that there's great value in us devoting our time and attention to come to spend time together twice a week. I'm definitely motivated to move things along as well. But that's not forcing a thing, but rather inviting what's possible. And I feel strongly that there's some right timing with all of this, that we just have to feel. And we each have our personal things that are going on. My life has just been crazy. And for some reason, this continued craziness is taking me away from being able to devote in this space how I would like to, and not that it's about me. It's not. It's just that I have very specific things that I want to be able to contribute to this space, and to be with you all, to do our 20-legged race forward into the future we're creating. And I think that for me, it's about really being present with what actually is right now, and finding ways to be very human in it. It is of grave concern, but it's also ridiculous what's happening in the world today. Like, I kind of appreciate the pundits' way out of this, because, it is in fact so stupid what's happening on so many levels, and so obvious that I think that we do have an opportunity to be like, hey man, this shit is fucked the fuck up, and it doesn't have to be. Look at all these good people out there that are not only wanting to lean into the change, but are. Right? And so I'm looking to kind of get in right relationship with humor, because I think that might help to be able to feel less freaking weighed down by it all. And so anyhow, I'm really excited and to think together with you guys about different games we can play, different shorter formats for videos we can do, different ways to be able to, you know, generate value in ways that are more specific for those who want to have that specificity and have that clarity around things. And I think, yeah, I'm looking forward to do that. I recognize that December is often busy for people, and but I will, you know, I want to invest. I want to invest myself in this and us, and finding some fun ways to be able to play in this space and create some interesting stuff for people to be like, aha, that's good. And sorry, I have a cold.
So for the record, when I come here, I am playing and I am having fun. It may not look like it. I'm not jumping up and down. You know, I'm not doing, you know, head, shoulders, knees, and toes all the time. But this is what is fun for me. So I just want to go on the record for that.
So just to contribute, I shared a link. It's to a site called deepfun.com, which was created by a friend and hero of mine named Bernie DeKoven, who made his life's work about games and play and fun. So it is a very deep resource for finding ways of playing together.
So sorry, one more thought on that. And that is, you know, there's a common thought here that play is for children the most serious work they can do because they're learning. And if we're learning how to interact, how to be, how to create those models of governance, how to even write how-tos, I think that is a form of play. And I see that definitely as a form of play. And that's what I would, you know, I mean, that invitation to engage in that play, I think has been in our midst.
Mm. Yeah, I had some guys I was working for almost a year, and they had this game, and it was actually a really nice one. It was like one person went up, and then the other people said something nice about the person, and something so it was a real feel good experience, and that's those kind of games. I think that's very good, and yeah, I also really think that I want to have fun and I want to explore many things, and we can talk in many ways, and yes, and it should be interesting because it really is interesting, and we can talk about very interesting things, and we can do it in an interesting way, and we have to figure that out together, right? And that's we're kind of trying, and but it is a strange process. It sure is, and I also feel like I have so many ideas about how we could do it and how this could be, and like things I've been thinking about for years and years, and I get the impression we all have this. So it's then how can I say a few words now that are meaningful and useful to us in what we were interested in, and what I certainly do feel is all of us has this we're human and we believe in humanity. We have this sort of wish that humanity could be greater than we've been. we could be greater than them. And there's also a sorrow with that for me. Also, this that I could have been greater, I should have been greater. And it's like could have been so different, and it's all those wasted possibilities, and all of this stuff comes up. And but when we're here together and we can talk about it, we can share it, then I feel like things are relieving and things are seen in a different way. And then new things are discovered as we're looking at this together. And that I really like, and that is a playful process, because there's, so it's going to be so much is happening, like in the world, in the universe. I mean, come on, look at this thing, life. I mean, it's actually a really complex thing. It's like the most multi-dimensional, weirdest, most unbelievable drama that you could ever imagine. And it's happening, and we're right in the middle of it. And it's like, yeah, in the universe, who knows how big it is? And it's just like, yeah, and here we are. I'm like, what does it mean to be a human? And it's like, now we can maybe create it all together for the first time, or maybe, So I'm just sharing this space together, and we're just looking at these possibilities, and we're sharing the different thoughts, and a lot of good possibilities coming through. And that's what really inspires me about this. I feel there's this big promise of something, a new kind of human being, and like every one of us has this something unique to bring, and it is very fun. It's very. We say so many strange things, and I think we should, just say whatever we want to say, and it's fun anyway. It's who we are now.
Can I just quickly break down play into the alphabet code? Play is thinking, counseling, all that is purpose. Thinking, informing, all that is purpose. Sounds pretty serious, actually. Serious job play has.
Yeah, it's only adults who see play as sort of frivolous or wasting time, twiddling your thumbs or something.
Not creating value for the man.
Yeah. But children certainly see play as really serious.
And so many people play games. I mean, it's such a big part of so many people's lives. Games.
Thinking about team games.
Yeah, that and video games, and I mean, so many people love that. Spend so much time with these virtual realities, and yeah, people love that stuff.
What do you think about that, Glenn? What are you saying?
Well, it's like we have all these games. Wittgenstein talks about language games, for example. So it's like how I'm talking now is one way of talking, right? So let's say this is important, or this is important. and then this is a language game or a behavior game, right? And we have rules and ideas for how we should be in certain situations, and this is one kind of game. But then of course there's video games, and we have these virtual realities. So I think people have always been doing that. I mean, we've always been making stories and ideas, things which could be possible, and then it's a kind of role play. And many people who play video games, they spend hours and hours and hours in these virtual worlds where they have a kind of virtual identity. And I think it seems to be a big part of our culture today. And there's also a creativity in it, and that is play. I mean, and some of those kids I've seen them play, and they got such a reaction, and they cooperate in teams. I mean, some of them are pretty violent, but at least it's in a virtual safe place in a way. So, but they're so into it, and it seems like a strong impulse in people that you like, playing and testing things and having sort of virtual identities. And when I'm talking now, I have a kind of identity, and maybe later I'll say things in a different way. But yeah, it's like it's all games, isn't it? It just came to me now. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking nonsense, so forget everything I say.
I think gambling comes into it too. Just thinking about the connection of games. But actually, we seem to have lost the element of humor in these games. So, yeah.
There's sort of a duality to this, I think, because in the industrial frame, games are a push-based exploitative tool. And in a human being centered frame, which is sort of the world that Bernie DeKoven created and framed or sort of expanded, games are not about competition, they're about play and joy. And human beings are sharing joy and are generating an emotional experience, shared experience that's really powerful. And there are very few things, if you think about it, to Sam's point earlier about there's so much diversity. There's no one fit for all of humanity. And that's absolutely true. But are there certain essential things that are common to all human beings? And the two things that I think push that button or check that box is play and art, because they're both experientially about emotional connection and experience. It's the being part. And a world and a group of kids and a ball will find opportunity to play. And it doesn't matter language, culture, beliefs, anything. It's something that is and can be held and recognized in common. and in an industrial frame that's anti-human being, I think people are sort of bursting at the seams to find places to touch and reconnect with their beingness. And those opportunities, when they present, like, there are a lot of people go there. You know, Glenn's thing about the video games, my daughter had a business idea that took me into that world. I'm like, do you have any idea how many people comprise the video game playing population on the planet? It's unbelievable. The numbers are unbelievable, and blowing right past professional sports and all the big commercial. And the culture of all of those people is completely refractory to everything and anything industrial, like almost with a virulence, which is really interesting and really powerful. It's sort of that grassroots emergence imaginal cell thing. You know, the values part, I think, might be missing. You know, 4chan came out of the, you know, what I believe is a bankruptcy of values. And arguably, they put Trump in the White House. They created fake news. They're responsible for a lot of this cultural aberrance that's happening. But it's a bottom-up grassroots thing that's been created and enacted. So I think games and play afford an opportunity to do the opposite on an emergent grassroots bottom-up basis. The values piece is the part that I think determines whether it's for the dark side or for the light.
I'm just going to jump in with some technological pieces quickly, because Sam, I know, has to go at the top of the hour, and I really should too. Sam, do you want to give someone host powers, so they can stop the recording? It'll still go to your machine, but that way you don't have to cut it and edit it afterwards.
Sure. Anybody want to volunteer?
I have to go as well, so I can't, or I would.
Okay. Anna, Glenn, Aaron?
I don't think Anna can, and Aaron can't. I think only Glenn could.
Okay, so how would I do that?
Well, Sam's going to give you.
I just did it.
Oh.
You're the host.
Okay, so. Yeah.
Just press, when you leave the meeting, it will end recording, and you won't have to do anything because it'll go to Sam's machine. But that way he doesn't have to cut the end bit off where it's just dry air.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to just insert a few 10 seconds here. Doug, I still need a longer conversation with you, because other than play and art, it seems to me there's still much that's shared in the human experience. Conversation, sex, meals, sleeping, that's all part of the, human experience. And a lot of interaction happens around meals in particular. So, families actually create and strengthen their bonds around meals, or at least they used to, Maybe in mine, I still try to do that. And then I know that's missing in many households now. So I am really curious about why you isolate just those two and don't include some of these. Sex is a big missing piece. Maybe it's a taboo that we can't talk about. I thought that was not the case in this community. We should feel, comfortable bringing up almost all topics, it seems to me here. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out.
I also didn't quite follow, Doug, when you were saying that video games are some sort of grassroots movement. That you see some sort of potential there for growth of a well, maybe not a movement, but there's something happening there, which is the grassroots affirming something which I don't see in video games, because it seems to me they are, you know, totally industrial and dominated by the big corporations. And actually, I also wanted to take up the ball, which you said, you know, any ball. But where do we get balls from? I mean, balls are all manufactured. You don't get balls happening naturally in nature. How many, you know, African kids or Indian kids have a ball? You lose it, it's gone. You know, there's always a problem with a ball. So I wouldn't see that as fundamental to play. We have to find something more essential than those things in what play is really about, why play is so important.
I love that. Agree with all of that. I've got to go, but I'm going to hold on to it and pick it back up because I'd love to share it and also sort of kick that around a little bit, no pun intended.
You intended that. I've got to go too, everyone. You're wonderful. Thank you for this time. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Great.
Yo. So, Aaron, you haven't said all that much, but do you have any ideas or thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, these are cool topics. I like this thing on play and humor. Yeah, I have some thoughts here. I'll share some thoughts. I've proposed this idea before, and maybe I'll repeat it. It's that I've learned a lot by thinking through how to not do something, and almost making a self-effacing satire out of it, right? Kind of thinking, okay, if I were to, you know, give a presentation, how could I completely, you know, public presentation, you know, to actually go through thinking about all of the ways I could do it wrong actually helps me. And even for more complicated things, it works though, right? And sometimes making a satire out of that kind of, you know, if you have fright of something, to completely confront it through humor. So I have made the proposal half jokingly that it would be interesting if we kind of made a, you know, kind of a bit of a Monty Python-esque skit around how to not collaborate, right? How to collaborate incorrectly.
I love that idea.
Right? So let's right, let's come up with this, let's force an idea onto everyone, right? Let's prematurely force an idea. And then let's go run around and make sure that everyone buys in. You know, let's try to get consensus on some very concrete idea. And then let's just keep on going around, you know, let's use Facebook to talk about how we want to get off of Facebook, right? And let's just continually going around in circles about how we shouldn't be using Facebook while talking on Facebook, right? You know, so meanwhile, we have some people that are kind of trying to like market their business through our grassroots collaboration, or, you know, whatever the case. And I'm not just talking about this. I've, you know, in my own, I've seen, you know, there are a bunch of different archetypes and things that go wrong. And if we just embellished all of that, it could be interesting.
Well, we could use it in about this conversation. I mean, we could mimic a conversation that was absolutely dire, you know, where there was no connection between the people and no understanding, and everybody was totally in their own silo, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that would be really funny.
Exactly. And so here's one more thought. I do have a stream of thoughts on this. I'm glad you're getting it. And it's very Monty Python. I think if we position it like that, Monty Python, they did a lot. They actually had quite a powerful effect in terms of not taking yourself that seriously, because really we're just glorified apes, right? we're apes with just a slightly evolved brain structure. I mean, we're not that brilliant. So you're going to get a lot of people prematurely, and there's a whole list of all of, but here's one. There's a movement that I've been thinking about what's going on here. I'm not sure if you've heard of the Flat Earth movement. Have you heard of the Flat Earth movement?
Yeah, I did hear about it. Yeah.
So I think that it might have started on 4chan. I'm not sure. Do you know about 4chan, both of you? So 4chan is credited with having helped get Trump elected. Doug was mentioning that. I'm not sure if you recall. Doug mentioned that. And it was really, they created a lot of fake news. And 4chan is a platform in an online community, and they pushed out a lot of fake news with ridiculous saying Trump did this, Clinton did that. I think they might have created the Flat Earth movement as well, which was so. Here's my reading on it. I think the Flat Earth movement might have started as a joke, but then actually became a real thing. So similar to how I'm saying, let's create a false collaboration, a mockery of a collaboration, maybe it becomes a real thing. That's not really my point. The point is, though, that with this Flat Earth movement, I actually think that one of the real effects of it might be it might be net positive around making people more informed that the Earth is not flat, right? About astronomy and all. So my point is that sometimes actually the satire of something can pull out and help pull up humanity into actually netting out truth. Of course, some people are going to fall for the satire and not understand the satire, and they're going to get lost in it, which happens with all art. I mean, Nietzsche, the philosopher Nietzsche, a lot of people, the Nazis completely misread Nietzsche. He wasn't saying, it wasn't anti-Semitic. At least that's my impression, my read. But anyway, I think that might have been kind of the inspiration with the Flat Earth movement to make a mockery of it all, to kind of bring about, to kind of bring an awareness around how poor science education is, how, all of these things. So I think that there is actually some value into looking at all of the ways to not do things, right? To kind of exposing that. And it's also hilarious too. I think that, I've been fairly involved with kind of trying to do community organization and grassroots movements. And I've seen so many patterns about the way that things go wrong. So actually, I understand much more how things go wrong than how things go right. I'm an expert in how things go wrong. So anyway, I think that play is useful, humor is useful. And in particular, I'd love to make some humor around that, around just kind of self-effacing everything I've tried to do. And probably all of us, we have a lot of that in common. Just, anyway, that's my little, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
But it is really hilarious. I mean, human beings, we are crazy, aren't we? We are hilarious. We are strange. So, we say a lot of strange things when we have these talks, and that's good because we show different sides of our nature. And the thing is, so many different things, and it's always a part of people. So when we kind of share these different sides of our nature, we just we see each other in a new way, and then something is created out of that. So that's what's so weird. That when I'm talking now, it's and these are language experiments, and we're playing around. We are playing, no matter if we think we're doing anything else. That is what we're doing, and we don't know what we will figure out. But we share different things, and different perspectives. And when all of this is taken together, it's a collection. It's a collection of many of our insights. And then, what if there are some patterns in that collection? What if there are some values that we've discovered we have in common? Then those values are in that pool. So whatever we put into the pool, it's real experience. So it's real moments where we share something, and that's real for us now. And you share something that's real for you then. And while we're going through this process, we're discovering new things. So it's like an adventure, isn't it? And like I say a lot of strange things, especially today. I've been thinking about so many things today. And today I'm just saying a lot of different things. But sometimes, I mean, that's good too, to just share different perspectives. But it's like the point I want to get to is that there's this pool which I see with all of these conversations and all of these moments, and it shows different sides of our human nature, and it's not really about this group or that group. It's lots of groups who have these conversations, and all of these conversations, like, what do we bring into it? I want to bring in something interesting. That's maybe my role, Glenn role or whatever. I like to, because there's so many possibilities which haven't been tried. So I like to talk about that. But then, and that relates to all of your experiences. But it's like we see it from different perspectives. And the point I want to make is that fact that we see it from different perspectives comes together into this pool that sort of emerges from the words we're sharing now. And that's why I don't really think it matters that much if we say anything cool or short or whatever. I mean, we can share lots of things and we can have fun with it, and it's like whatever, and we can look at it later, and there's always something to learn from it. I just really enjoyed the process of that. So does that make any sense? I just wonder how you feel.
Well, what I heard Aaron saying was that what we learn maybe is we learn how not to do it. So that seems to be like, the thing that we focus on, actually, that we're best at, is knowing the mistakes that we've made. And what you're talking about, it seems, Glenn, is somehow this pool. I guess you're talking about a sort of trying to think of the word now, that that there is when the birds learnt to pierce the tops of milk bottles, there was this idea that there is a common area where they all learn something at the same time, even though they're not actually communicating. So there is a pool of
kind of collective consciousness, collective unconscious.
Yes, you could call it collective consciousness, but this guy, this scientist, Robert somebody or other, he called it, I can't remember the name of, you know, it's some sort of collective thing that exists that somehow we all are connected by this. Yeah, I'll remember the name and I'll put it up on Slack or something. Yeah, I'm not sure that, do you really think that we have that available, that collective consciousness, or that this sort of pool of my feeling is that because just thinking about again what Aaron was saying about the thing that we know best is how to not do something. That's what we really get expert at, because we always notice when things are wrong. That's the we're taught, you know, to notice particularly when things are wrong. So that's the lesson that we mainly learn, I think. And somehow we have to get over that. And maybe one way to get over it is to sort of send it up as some, you know, clown, sort of clowning around, hilarious sort of joke that, and then you notice that that's what you're doing. And maybe you can connect inside to something deeper. I don't know whether that works, but I don't have this faith that you have, Glenn, in we're going to produce something beautiful or find some way to produce this amazing thing that nobody else has ever sort of produced before. I can see it as an idea, but I don't see where it's going to come from.
Interesting. I think, Glenn, on what you said, if I could add a bit to what you said, yeah, I think that you might be addressing partly the fear of not having solved something so quickly. There is something of a fear that people seem to be terribly afraid of. Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this going anywhere? Is this, even the greatest experts have no idea if it's going somewhere. It's just an experiment. It seems that you might be kind of continually addressing that, because I think that within our community, a lot of people have voiced concern, rightfully so, but that's kind of a standard concern. I think that in some ways, so I believe, Glenn, that that's kind of what you're addressing when you say something like you just did there, which is that, just kind of being open to letting something emerge, not forcing things. You can't force things to happen. Is that kind of what you're addressing, Glenn? Does that sound right?
Yeah, and there's so many things to it. It's like, yeah, trying to express this well. It's like, I feel that in the meeting point for forces all over the world at the moment, there is this new mind which is being formed, and we're already forming it by who we are. So and if we can find a kind of way where we can be who we are, and it can be okay, and there can be harmony and it can work well, then if we could get to that, then even for one day, maybe that would be enough to have one very good day for all of humanity, and try to begin here now as if we see the world for the first time, because I know that there are big challenges for humanity, but I'm just wondering, are we thinking too small, or is this a time when we can think totally new, a lot like in a different dimension? And this idea has come to me over the years, and I feel it comes from the subconscious mind, and it keeps coming back, that somehow the human beings, we have this greatness in us, this evolutionary greatness and impulse, and it's like we want to evolve and we want to take it to the next level, and we're crazy and we're irresponsible and all that, but we're in a journey, and culture, it's strange, but there is this collective, it's a sort of balance. I mean, a lot of it actually works pretty well. Even, that's, a lot of the things that happens in our day, it's a lot of things we do well, relatively well.
Give an example. What's an example of what we do well?
Well, like, it can be small moments, but just when I see people on the streets, when I see them moving, when I see them talking, I see that there is a kind of goodness in all people, and we're all great. That's the point, is we are great because we are some of the most complex great creatures in the whole known galaxy. We are incredibly complex.
I'm sorry, I have an appointment to meet with someone. I'm sorry, I just rang the bell, so I'm gonna have to.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Darren.
Really nice to chat. Great chatting with both of you. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Take care. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, Anna, that I just feel that perspective. I feel that.
I got what you were saying there, and I agree with you. If we could just be ourselves totally, and you said like we've just seen the world for the first time, like we've just woken up.
Yeah.
And exactly. So we don't bring any luggage with us, no conditioning. We're just seeing everything like it's new. But then you went on to say that we're all great, and I'm not sure about that. I think what you're saying about seeing the world new, I love that, and that feels like that's almost like the divine vision, when everything is totally new, when you don't have any preconceptions about it. And that if that was to happen, then we would be able to, there would be harmony, because there is harmony in the world. It's just all the stuff that we bring with us which stops us seeing the harmony.
Yeah.
So if we could just get rid of that for a day, like you say, there would be that harmony. It would work. Everything. But it's pretty clear, Glenn, that we have all this luggage. How are we going to get rid of all this luggage? How do we get rid of it, even for a minute.
Do we have to get
Sometimes,
rid of it?
sorry,
Do we have to get rid of it?
but this feeling of everything being new, because
Yeah.
it's so familiar. This is our comfort zone. We know all this. That's the problem. We already
Yeah.
know it.
Yeah, it's so interesting here to relate it, because there's something here which really fascinates me.
Well, you
And
feel it when you go out in the street. You feel it with those people that you see.
yeah,
You see that.
I see that there's a greatness. I see it in the way they move. I see it in just the way they are. They're imperfect and they're weird and they have their habits, but there's something great about all of the human beings. We are a very we are a unique life form, and
Yeah.
I feel that is forgotten in these conversations, that we are actually great already. We
Are
are.
you saying we are great as opposed
Yes.
to other? But don't you think
No, no, no.
every life form is great?
Yes, yeah, that's my point.
If you
The
can
point
see
is,
it.
yeah, it's more like this whole thing, like nature, the universe, the stars, the cells, the people. I mean, if you think all of it together, I mean, there's something so great which we were part of, which we are already, and we've come so far. Think that we've come so far up to this
Yeah.
point as a species. So all this negativity about humanity and that we're so bad, I think we should be finished with that. I think that humanity has a greatness in us that needs to be recognized.
But
And
how are you going to get people to finish with that? Everybody, I think, would agree with you that actually human existence is a miracle. Existence is a miracle. When it
yeah,
strikes you like that, when you can see amazing the way the sun comes up and the way it goes down and everything about it is a
yeah,
miracle.
it is.
But how do we get from there to, how do we shake off all this stuff that sticks to us?
Yeah.
Maybe
I
it
mean,
doesn't stick
it's
to
not
you.
so easy. It's not so easy, but it's interesting though. I mean, and it's like
Yeah.
I feel that we're learning, and we're testing things out, and we're learning. And but yeah, how do we deal with it? Do we need to shake it off? Like one thing I'm wondering is, could I make all my habits useful? Could I find a kind of attitude where whatever is already here is fine and we can adapt to it? What if we could do that collectively? And
All
there's
your habits useful, did you say? Make all your habits useful. Is that what you said?
yeah, yes, exactly. Like if that could be possible, that all the human habits, all our even bad habits, bad experiences, whatever's happened, it is in a larger sense um, very useful and informative, and there's something to learn from it.
So
And
there's a
even,
gift in everything, you're saying.
yes,
And if
exactly.
we were able to see that, so that's a realization. Nothing needs to change out there. It's just realizing that everything is a gift and the world is perfect the way it is.
Well, it is wonderful. Let's put it that way. So,
Okay.
but that, I just think it's
Yeah.
important to remember. And then, what if we could live as if it was wonderful, and just say we will make it wonderful, and we will make it wonderful for all people, and we can do it, and that's what we want to do. And if we could do that, then why do anything else?
What about what happens if you go out in the street and you see somebody kicking a dog or throwing a baby somewhere or doing something that you feel that shouldn't happen? What
Yeah,
do you do?
we have systems that have been developed with policemen and different security people, and it's not a perfect system, but the thing is that that is what we have developed. But like, what would I do? I mean, how would I see it? It's like we have to have some way to have protection and safety. So that's important. And but what if we could do it in a way which just protected them, protected us, and no death penalty? It would be no need for anything like that. I mean, what if the prisons could be places where they could do really great things? What if we don't have to punish them? What if we could say that they're all beautiful beings, they're all living beings, they all have unique skill sets, and we don't have to say they're good, they're bad, they're all great. And if we could have that valuing
Well,
of humanity in a way, like all of us, the humans, to value what we have here, I think maybe that would change everything if we
of
really
course it would.
valued it.
Yes, of course. But in a way, you have to start with you, or I
Yeah,
have to start with me. So if I go into it's not even, if I go into the street and I see these beautiful people and then I see something which disturbs me and which makes me feel that shouldn't be happening, then
mm,
it's a question really of how can I deal with that? So how do you deal with this person? Maybe there's no policeman around who's kicking a dog. What do you feel about that person? How do we deal with things that don't fit into this beautiful picture that we have of what existence could be like?
well, we have those people, we have the man, we have the dog, and those are among us. And we, uh, I mean, we have a way to go until we can, that all people can be included, so that it's a people thing, isn't it? It's like, why is he kicking the dog? Why why is he aggressive? Why does he do it that way? Why hasn't he found a better way? How could we find a better way? If we could find a better way, if let's say 50,000 people could find a better way and could really develop that better way, then they would already change the world, because there would be something created.
Yeah.
And yes, and it does hurt, of course, when you see the things which are so far away, like the cognitive dissonance that Tanya talked about. How I feel inside this beautiful world could be, and then we see all this which is very far away. But like,
And
I
quite
keep,
probably all that came from his childhood, some experience that he had very far back, which would take quite a long time and a lot of, it would take a lot of work to begin to, for him to have compassion on the stuff that happened to him, to be able to accept and feel understanding without having to take it out on the dog. I mean, there's all this is part of the what has to happen. I also love this picture that you have of this mind that somehow we're all helping to create a different mind, which may somehow feed into a different, a more caring attitude. That's really what's missing, is the caring. That everything has to happen so fast that there isn't time to care about this guy who's kicking the dog and what happened to him, so that we can help him. Instead, just throw him in prison and, that's
It's
job
not
done.
Yeah, I mean, if some people are suffering, I mean, there's a part of everyone who's suffering, isn't there?
Yeah.
But what if we could include everyone? What if we could manage to do that? Think like the dignity in that, and how all people could be beautiful, all people can be interesting, everything everyone says can be interesting, because it all changes anyway. So, I mean, even if accidents happen, if there's a larger process, if we are part of a larger process which is learning, which is evolving, then yes, we have to somehow live with this brutal reality, and it's, totally brutal for the individual identity, but still, it's a spectacle. It's a very rich existence we have. It's a very interesting society. People have built a culture, a literature, a knowledge base of science and art and music. I mean, there's so many gifts which people through the ages have brought and which are still with us. And all of this is like in this big pool, and it is very overwhelming because it's so much. But then it has a momentum of its own, perhaps. And I
Well,
have this feeling that it's a kind of mind between us. Does that make sense?
a mind.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
it is a kind of
That has
mind.
its own momentum. That would be lovely. Yeah. I mean, that really is what we need. We need a miracle like that for this mind to grow with its own momentum, because we know that we can't do it, that we're just one little speck in this whole thing, and yet we can see what needs to happen.
Yeah, it's a very big thing, but but I just find the dream of it to be very uplifting. That
Right.
maybe it is quite possible for all people to experience a day when we see that there is a new way of doing it,
Yeah.
and and if it is sufficiently good, like even if it happened in 10,000 years, and my life was just one little episode which may have contributed to it, I'm thinking that if it just happened for one day, sometime it's going to be worth it. If all people in the world somehow globally can be, just everyone can be happy, and it can be on a different level altogether. And I just feel somehow that this is possible, and it's something
Yeah.
I
I
wish
agree with
for.
you. It's going to happen, actually. Maybe not in my lifetime, but it will happen. It's the possibility which is built into every one of us. And we all see that as a possibility. I think that's just given to us as our heritage, really, to see that.
Yeah, because we are creative creatures, humans,
Yeah.
and we're the sort of wild, creative part of nature, and we are a part of nature, and
Yeah.
it's a
You're
lot of
describing nature, actually. That's what you're
Yeah.
describing. This mind, this mind that has its own momentum, that is nature, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is nature. We are nature,
Yeah.
and this is another idea which came to me today. And I know I'm babbling a bit today, but I found it very fascinating, and that is that when we are speaking like we are now, then this is actually words which creates a new reality into the world. So these words, they come into the world and they create a new life form, a new kind of pattern. So in fact, we are creating new patterns by our conversations, and every moment when we speak, it is a new way we can say something, and maybe it's interesting, but like in all of those activities, it is like all of these different sides of our nature comes out, and we see that we're very interesting human beings. We're strange. We go from this to that, and we babble and we talk, think about this thing and that thing, and we're very interesting. So yes, we're strange and sometimes destructive in behavior, but there's always there's always so much happening with us, and um, because of that, I just feel that we always have this option of starting from zero, don't we? Because yeah, it's so much happening, but hey, here we are. We could begin from zero, and we learn along the way. And I feel like yeah, what if life could be a little more like that, for example? Just,
I think that's a personal sensitivity that you have, Glenn, and maybe not everybody has it. I don't think I have it. It's something that I feel occasionally. It's not something that I constantly feel. I can see what you're talking about, but I know that a lot of the time I don't experience that sensitivity to life being an exciting miracle, which I know that it is,
yeah,
but I'm
I know.
not
It's the
awake
same
to it.
here. It is the same here. It's like I hardly ever actually experience it, but I kind of know it, and it's so weird because I know that I'm like this cloud of atoms flying through space, and it's something so awesome about just the fact that the universe exists. I mean, that's maybe what's
Yeah.
underneath this, but it's like, but most of the times it's like we don't really think about it that way, but like, but it's in the background, and it's
It
like
is this
it's somehow,
mystery. It's this
yeah,
mystery of life. It's being alive, which is really, it's not so much for me. I mean, the universe, yes, is amazing, magnificent, but it's the fact that it's alive. Somehow it's
yeah,
alive, and we are alive. And it is just mind blowing, really, when you let it sink in that life is whatever it is. It's such an experience.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. it's so much. I mean, it's just, and yeah, just a fact that it's here. It's for some reason that just astonishes me, and and
Do you
it's a
think,
comfort. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a bit of
I'm
a
just
comfort
wondering,
somehow.
yeah, it is a comfort because, yeah, there's something, first of all, you don't feel alone. When you're aware of being alive, life is like a comfort, like you said, but it's like a companion. There's always somebody there with you because life is real. It's, you know, you're not alone. Life is supporting you. You are being lived all the time. But I'm just wondering now whether, do you think that, for example, when they were just hunter-gatherers in the Stone Age or whenever, before they had all the sophisticated technology that we have, with whether people there also had this appreciation of life being incredibly wonderful?
Yeah, it's not easy for us to know that long back, but the
Well, my feeling is, it's impossible to know, but my feeling is that yes, human beings have always had that connection available. Maybe, like you say, most of the time we're not aware of it, but it's always there as a possibility. And
yes, it is.
we tend to think of it as somehow connected with our sophisticated knowledge, but I think it's there right at the beginning when a baby is born. Actually, you can see it in babies, and that's why people are so fascinated by babies, because you can see babies, they look at something that sort of dangles in front of them. It's just amazing. You can see that they are amazed, constantly amazed by what they see. And then gradually, you know, the sort of familiarity begins to cover up our amazement. And we lose that newness that you were talking about, of seeing everything new, so that it's just amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
Glenn, I think we have to stop.
Yeah,
It's
a
been
rich
lovely talking to
conversation.
you.
We'll still have to work a little more to solve all the world's
That's
problems,
right.
but we're well
A little
underway.
bit harder.
Yeah, we're well underway. So yeah,
Okay.
really appreciate it, Dana. Yeah, bye
Bye
bye.
bye, Glenn. Lovely talking to you.
You too. Ja. Ja, ja.